Iran is set to launch their first nuclear reactor next week with a lot of help from the Russians. The nuclear power plant at Bushehr has been under construction for decades, but it's the Russians who are helping them to build it, and they are now prepared to load it up with uranium. And with the reprocessing of the uranium from spent fuel rods, the Iranians could have everything they need to make nuclear weapons. So why did the Russians give Iranians what they need to become a nuclear nation? Joining us now, former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, John Bolton. Ambassador, great to see you. So what does this, first of all, tell you about our good friend, the Russians?
Well, you know, the Russians were under enormous pressure for years not even to ship the uranium to Bushehr by the Bush administration and Obama, and then by Obama not to allow the fuel rods to be inserted. And the fact that this is now happening even after the Fourth Security Council sanctions resolution demonstrates that the Russians are, as they often do, playing both sides against the middle. And they're giving something Iran that's incredibly important here.
Well, we have no influence with the Russians. I feel comfortable in saying that. I mean, there's just no influence. I mean, they'll do what they want to do. They don't care at all what we have to say or think about it, right?
Well, I think this is a clear demonstration of that. And what is going to happen here in the next month or so as these fuel rods are inserted and the reactor is brought up to full power is that Iran will have achieved something that no other opponent of Israel, no other enemy of the United States really in the Middle East has, and that is a functioning nuclear reactor.
Well, I say, maybe I made a mistake. I said they really don't care if Iran gets a bomb. Maybe they do. Maybe the Russians want Iran to have a bomb. It's some kind of strange game that they're playing, geopolitical game.
Well, I think it's very much to Russia's interest not to have Iran get nuclear weapons.
I think too. But again, the way they think. Again, forgive me for interrupting, Ambassador, but the way they think, I mean, they play hardball, and maybe from their perspective, you know, it would balance things out in a certain way.
Well, the idea of being able to stick a thumb in America's eye always figures prominently in Moscow. So the fact is that the sensible view that this is not in Russia's interest does not prevail in Moscow, and that's why they're allowing this to go ahead. There's a cynical view that Russia knows that at some point maybe the United States, more likely Israel, isn't going to tolerate this going forward, and that they will use preemptive military force so that Russia wins on both sides. They sell this reactor to Iran, and then they get Israel to take it out. No downside to the Russians. They get to condemn Israel, but Iran doesn't get the bomb. That's a cynical view, but again, not unheard of in Moscow.
Not unheard of, but that sounds, even for the Russians, that sounds like too many bank shots there. But the point is that we or Israel or whomever can't bomb these plants, this nuclear reactor, because it would send radiation flying in the air. It would affect thousands of people, Iranians. So in a way, they have almost checkmated us. The Iranians have. They now have a way of getting nuclear fuel that cannot be attacked because for humanitarian reasons it cannot be attacked. So they've got it, right?
Well, unless the Israelis move within the next 8 days, once that uranium, once those fuel rods are very close to the reactor, certainly once they're in the reactor, as you say, attacking it means a release of radiation, no question about it. So if Israel is going to do anything against Bushehr, it has to move in the next 8 days. If they don't, then, as I say, something Saddam Hussein wanted but couldn't get, a functioning nuclear reactor because the Israelis bombed it in 1981, something that Bashar al-Assad in Syria wanted, a functioning nuclear reactor until the Israelis bombed it, couldn't get. The Iranians, sworn enemies of Israel, will have.
Boy, we've literally run out of time, but very quickly, within the next 8 days, do you think it's likely that within the next 8 days Israel will strike?
I don't think so. I'm afraid that they've lost this opportunity.
Ambassador John Bolton, great to see you. Have a good weekend. Coming up on deck.